Good evening, everyone. My name is Justyna Szymańska-Laskowska. You don't have to remember my two long last names. I'm the DACH Business Director at Future Processing, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to the DigiTalk, featuring a panel discussion and a networking session organized by Future Processing and Digitale Stadt München. Tonight is not just another networking event, it marks a significant milestone in our long-term partnership, and I'm so glad that tonight we are taking that partnership to the next level, exploring new horizons and forging stronger bonds. We are thrilled to have an exceptional lineup of panelists who bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. So please allow me to introduce Lars Nielsen, Head of Digital Technology at Giesecke & Devrient Currency Technology. Sergio Patan, Director of Cloud Engineering and Operations at Allianz Direct. And Vadim Votuk, Principal Solutions Architect at AWS. Each of our panelists brings a unique perspective on the challenges and opportunities within the ever-evolving business IT landscape. So I'm certain that their insights will provide valuable strategies for achieving cost excellence while navigating risks. We won't let you go without those strategies. So, yeah. Our moderator for the night is Adam Gatza, Vice President of Cloud and Innovation at Future Processing, and Adam will guide us through the discussion tonight. Adam is a seasoned expert in the field, known for fostering engaging discussions and thought-provoking conversations, so we're also counting on that. As we delve into tonight's discussion, I can just say what Benno said. We encourage you to actively participate, use the most of the networking experience, share your thoughts, and I'm sure that tonight we'll be able to bring the future of IT forward together. So thank you so much for being here. We're so happy to host you, and let's make this evening a memorable one, shall we? Enjoy the discussion.
Okay, that's definitely a high bar set. Hi everyone, it's my pleasure as well to welcome you here and my panelists as well. I hope it will be enjoyable, but definitely insightful conversation. So when I was thinking with the team about the theme for our meeting today, I have the thought that the modern IT environment is ever changing. We had on-premise, it still is. We had cloud, AI, data platforms, sovereignty, and they all have to work together, just like we all have to work together in our offices. But as with every new innovation, there's growing complexity. And a thought came to my mind, how we turn that complexity into that cost into a competitive advantage for all of us and for our companies. So that's how the title of the discussion panel came to life: the art of cost excellence in ever-changing business IT landscapes. And I hope that we'll come out of this room with strategies, risks, and opportunities. And we'll begin with topic number one, and it has changed. The original idea was different, but after we four engaged, we came to idea that with current landscape definitely should be topic number one. So over 90 European tech companies and lobby groups, including Airbus or Dassault System, have called European Commission to establish a sovereign infrastructure fund in Europe. And the argument is that recent events related to United States and European Union have highlighted the need that we should invest into this region and maintain the sovereignty. And I think AWS is a perfect example, with a promise to invest almost 8 billion euros and kickstart the sovereign cloud in Europe near end of the year. So as we have tightening regulations and there are tensions in geopolitics, I'm curious how organizations can ensure digital sovereignty while still benefiting from global cloud services innovation, and what does sovereignty truly mean in practice? So over to you, Sergio.
I was expecting to hear. I'm surprised. No, I'm kidding. So a pleasure to be here. And thank you for the question. It's a very challenging one. And my simple answer would be open source. But I'm opinionated because I have a role with CNCF, so Cloud Native Foundation. And I truly believe, and I'm speaking for a while about what I call, let's say, innovation sovereignty, which is extremely important for companies to tap into, especially here in Germany. What we've seen in the past few years, I mean, maybe 20 years, we saw that you externalize the knowledge to different third parties, and you don't capture the knowledge. And we were completely hit, for example, by different revolutions. Like we had cloud, and then you suddenly realize no one in your company knows how to do cloud because you externalize, you don't have the talent to do anything. No? So this is mainly and AI now is coming with the same problem. You want to capture AI, you want to innovate with AI, but where do you find the talent to understand AI and grow? So the first point that you have to recognize is there is no innovation sovereignty in Europe left, and especially in some regions. So that's the part where you have to start. How do you build that again? Where do you get the talent and where do you retain the talent? Because you need a talent that can compete with the US that pays simply 10 times more than what we pay in Europe. So what kind of other specifics can you now bring in order to retain the talent in Europe? And then you have to make it a strategic point, which we never do because we are lacking money in Europe because compliance is simply killing us. I'm going to be a little bit brutal here now. But it's, you have limited resources, and now we are in an age where those limited resources are even more limited. We all behave like we are in a recession, and probably will realize that we were in a recession some months from now. So you simply still don't invest in long-term capabilities. And now with what's happening in US, we realize that we knew that, but we always thought that it's not going to be as bad as we found out today to be. No? And we realized that we have no rails for the trains. There is no cloud provider, European. We do have great partners from the United States, but that again, China has their own clouds. US obviously has so many other options. Europe has none and has built none over the last 20, 30 years. We lost the revolution already. With AI, it's running in cloud. It's not going to run on premise. So you have no chance in doing AI if you're not in the cloud in the first place. You know? So that needs to happen. And most of the companies, including the one I represent today, we are still like 90% behind the goal. 90% is still more or less on premise. So, and now we lose the focus and probably we look at AI before we solve the cloud problem. And then we go back to your question, how can you really be digital now sovereign when there is no European cloud? And you look at the technology stack that one cloud environment has, and you see that all the enterprise solutions are not European, no? And then maybe the only option that you have is like over-investing in open source, because open source is available to everyone. So you can replace the stack, enterprise stack that you currently have, maybe with open source stack that can be owned by yourself if you have the innovation sovereignty. Again, if you have the talent to run open source. Huh? Mm-hmm. So it's a complicated topic. I don't see European Union still invested in the right direction. We want to skip revolution and we just want to tap into AI, but we are lacking the foundation, which start with talent in the first place. So I see the change happening. But is it fast enough? I don't know. I guess we'll see.
That's very interesting perspective that you put into the picture, open source. But I'm certainly interested in what Vadim has to say about it from the perspective of AWS.
Yeah. So generally, while working with AWS, we have a chance to listen to what hundreds of thousands of customers are talking to us. And of course, they're all concerned. And especially if you are talking about European customers, they're concerned about like what is the future and what will happen if, I don't know, MasterCard tomorrow will shut down, or Visa, or AWS will decide to apply 30% tax because of some tariffs and so on. And of course, they're nervous, right? And it's good that they're coming to us and asking that, not keeping these questions behind. And first of all, AWS is actually recognized this thing about a couple of years ago. That's where this whole 8 billion investment coming into Germany. There will be huge sovereign AWS region located in Germany, in Brandenburg, if I'm not mistaken, with European employees, technologically, infrastructurally not connected to anything which is not related to European infrastructure, which is already the first step. There's also local providers, I don't know, Schwarz Group, for example, they're trying to do, but of course, it's important to understand that hyperscalers are not similar to local providers. And the beauty of hyperscaler here, being AWS, it's ability to build AI on a scale like Google, AWS, whoever, Facebook, Meta doing. Like, it's very simple, it's very hard to replicate it here, which means that we need to find some kind of shared agreement maybe, or maybe some kind of gentleman's agreement between producers of this intelligence, which we call AI, and sovereignty that we need, especially based on the recent directives from European Union. And of course, there are some kind of attempts, like for example, AI from France called Mistral. Somehow it works. It's a great tool. I'm personally using it for my own, but it's not enough. It's a little bit one company against the whole world. Yes, it's supported by government. It's supported by a French president. It's publicly sponsored by French president in terms of visibility and so on. That's great. But there's nothing like that coming from Germany, unfortunately. There are great companies here. I know a couple of them, literally from Munich, which doing that. It's, I don't know, Aleph Alpha, for example, or similar companies. They're doing great AI, but somehow like they don't become this kind of driver or visible driver of particular innovation trains that we have here in Germany. And that's unfortunately we need to change. And I believe that we need to change it very fast. On the other side, I'm not that, let's say, pessimistic. Like, I believe it will just take maybe 1-2 years, but 1-2 years over the course of 10 years will not change too much. Like, even if European Union will be 1-2 years later on this revolution, it's okay. Like, European Union is famous for being traditional, right? Bound to traditional, and it's a value of it, right? It's a value of our society, and we should not lose our values just because something happens around the world. I think its social aspect should keep, cultural aspect should stay here.
Okay, so that's very interesting, different perspective. So Sergio mentioned people and open source and innovation related to that. Then you mentioned that we should call a coalition to invest on a scale to compete, but also support locally. Yep. So I'm interested, Lars, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, maybe I'm looking a bit more from practice side on it. So also as our topic today is cost, the thing is that the hyperscaler capabilities, which you get from Azure, from AWS, from Google, and also, of course, from Ali Cloud, that's the major driver why we are using these hyperscalers. Because they have the software as a service solutions, you can deploy firewalls on a click, they are automatically managed, I don't have to put in my own people, my own knowledge, I don't have to install open source solutions and so on. So speaking of sovereignty, yes, I fully agree. If I want to be sovereign, I might go to open source, I might develop my own stuff, there are many European cloud providers, of course, but no hyperscalers. I can use them, but then it's all about cost and about budget. So do I have the budget as company and the talent to build it up, to fine-tune it, and so on and so forth. And if I see with us, if we start with small solutions, with small budgets, going fast to the markets, all of our customers are somewhat international. So we have maybe one big German customer, obviously, which is a Bundesbank, but everything else is all the central banks in the world and big banks. And that it even doesn't help me if I can say, hey, I have my cloud in Germany, yeah, great, but who of our customer wants to use it? I have to deploy it to South Africa, I have to deploy it to Asia, I have to deploy it to whoever the customer is. And these capabilities are not so easy to achieve. And if I want to achieve it on my own, it's super expensive. So getting out of this? I don't know. I don't see this way. It's maybe the question, how much is sovereignty worth for my business? And maybe also looking on the data and on the tools which are running in there. So for example, if I build my core business, it's maybe software based on a tool, and this tool is running in the hyperscaler, then I have, of course, extremely high dependency. But if I just, let's say, have a small BI solution with not so super critical data there, and then the question is, okay, I run on a hyperscaler, as a hyperscaler, I cannot use it anymore. Yes, then I have to find something else, but that will be possible. But it's always, right, like cost, benefit, risk you can take, and it's always a question of the context, I would say. But yes, in the moment we have 4 hyperscalers, 3 from US, 1 from China. That's it. And I see it the same way. I don't see a European hyperscaler coming up because there's in the moment at least no European company which is able to invest so much money. And of course we're lacking regulations, talent, and so on and so forth. That's just how it is. The question is not, do we get a European hyperscaler? Not an own one, I don't think so, this will not happen. The options are you can, of course, say, okay, you have to separate it. You are running a fully independent AWS or Azure in Europe. But then, of course, also the management and everything is not allowed to be connected. It is really independent. And that one, I don't see, to be honest.
Oh, that's where regulations could actually play a role.
Might be, yeah.
Americans managed to split Google, split Microsoft back in the days. Why not European Union could split other companies?
That's the only way, right? So that then you would really need European regulation with the stating this hyperscalers or this has to be really, really independent, that the NSA cannot just jump over and look into it, which is the case today for all hyperscalers, right?
Maybe I would be a little bit evil here, but in the moment AWS would convince China to use a sovereign solution owned by AWS, then Europe would be safe as well.
So, I get a sarcasm.
Yeah, we told that it would be changing. So, Lars, I think you already dove into that topic. So, how we can build an architecture that aligns with local control, data residency, vendor independence, without sacrificing the scalability, the speed, the innovation that hyperscaler brings. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're a bit in this typical magical triangles, right? So it's not possible. You don't get your own sovereign, cheap, independent hyperscaling. Right? So that doesn't work. So it's again, as mentioned, you have to think, where do I have to invest? What is important for me? Is it the sovereignty? Mm-hmm. Is it the knowledge? Is it the speed to market? Is it the ability to roll out in any region in this world? It really depends on your business, I would say. But you should, I think the most important thing is to take a cautious decision on that. Right? Not just, I use a hyperscaler because it's there and it's easy. I should really think, is a hyperscaler the right solution for the thing I'm trying to build for myself or for my customers? So this is maybe the question to be answered first, and then might be yes, might be no.
Okay. What's your thought, Sergio?
I have one.
I can see that.
Yes, I was like cooking it. So it's a matter of what kind of role the European companies want to play. Now, I'm consulting the group on one of the largest program right now, and we want to go global with the product we have. And when you want to go global, if you think about the operation cost, because again, focus is on FinOps, and we're going to talk about that. And you think about now rebuilding the same stuff again and again and again on a different cloud. You need a different team. No, that's not scalable. You can't do that. So you need a platform effect. And the only way you can achieve that and to be competitive on the market on a global scale, it's through a hyperscaler. So I would say if Europe wants to play a global role, they need to build and care about sovereignty. They need to build a hyperscaler. We need to build a hyperscaler in Europe, no matter what the cost is. It has to be seen as a priority number one, and the only way you can be, independent, long-term, politically and economically, and innovation-wise. There's no way around it. If you want to say we lock the borders and we are only focusing on European Union, you don't need a hyperscaler. That's doable. Okay. So it's a matter of what kind of game are we playing.
Okay. So Vadim, European hyperscaler growing on AWS now.
Yeah, I don't think that I can add something to that. I definitely agree with both statements here. Like You simply cannot have all in one, and you need to balance your risk and you balance your benefits here.
So once again, balancing act.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you thought that we would not speak about AI, you're mistaken. Everyone speaks about AI, we also. So, but it's AI in a particular use, which is compliance and simplification of compliance. And when we put that topic on the table for the first time, Sergio immediately told me that it's not about simplification, it's about reducing the waste of compliance, which is an interesting perception that we are going to see in a moment. But I found a nice quotation that compliance used to be a maze of manual processes and shifting regulation. Now AI acts as a compass, automating the routine, predicting risk, and transforming compliance from a burden into a strategic advantage. I mean, it sounds even generated by AI and sounds like a story that probably none of us have seen. But on the other side of the spectrum, we have regulation for AI Act. I'm not sure if you are aware, but if you would be found non-compliant with Article 5 of an AI Act, you could be served a fine up to 35 million euros. So that's definitely a challenge for all of us. And that is a challenge that organizations need to face when implementing AI. For compliance, we have diverse regulations now coming. It's ISO, AI Act, DORA, CRA, especially if we have legacy systems. So how can we overcome that, Lars?
Yeah, I think we should maybe not mix up the two things. So the one thing is the, let's say, AI Act on the AI itself, right, which is regulated, especially if you're doing face recognitions, financial transactions and so stuff. I would say for 99% of the AI usage doesn't have a big impact in first place. Of course, must be aware, but it's not super dramatic. And it makes sense from my perspective. And the other thing, of course, is then how to use AI to be more compliant with your own regulations. So, for example, our own cloud has to be SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, and it's like the ISO 20001 or BSI C5, so this is all going in the similar directions. But what does compliance mean? Well, typically you say, okay, I have all the processes in place, I have all those controls in place, and yes, we are doing it, and I have an auditor, and I'm proving then, yes, I'm doing it, and I'm doing it regularly. So it's a lot about collecting documents. Right, collecting evidences, handing them over, having them reviewed, and yes, of course, you think about it. I would also assume AI can be used to check it. AI can be used to generate it. I had the same thing. If I'm lacking a policy for something, well, I just ask ChatGPT, write me a policy, blah blah blah. There you have it. Yeah. But of course, it's not just about writing the policy. I have to implement it in the company, right? So that's the more tricky thing then. Yeah, I don't know. Personally, we are not using AI in compliance yet, but the thought, at least, I find interesting.
Okay. Sergio?
Are you ready? Another idea here. Again, I would connect the two topics. So the sovereignty with AI. I feel we know we are not sovereign, and we drive the AI in Europe with fear. The whole regulation, it's about fear. We recognize the data is not going to stay with us, the data is going to go with someone else, and we're going to simply enrich and give our advantage to a competitor from over the ocean. No? And therefore, the solution Europeans normally have is like, let's regulate, let's make sure we don't give data for free, right? Which is insane. And the cost with AI, again, and the opportunity cost that it comes in implementing all the regulation, it's huge. I mean, you have limited resources, and your focus is on training consumers. Now, you train the scope of most of the CEOs in the big companies I talk to is to have this AI literacy, to train everyone to be a consumer. And you spend tens of millions on that. But why don't you take that money and you invest in innovation again? Why don't you invest into free startups and then you create your own model and your own AI, and you're not afraid again of giving your data in a stupid way to someone that you do not trust. So there's an opportunity cost, and that's very heavy felt in the current age, which is mainly focused on savings, and there's no budget or attention left on innovation. And that innovation is not even AI innovation, it's just porting things to cloud, doing the cloud transformation that you should have finished like a few years ago. So I feel like we are now missing all that. The opportunity is big, and we're going to wake up sorry for being again a little bit pessimistic, no, but we're gonna wake up that the AI maybe is not generating the value we are imagining right now, not today. It's like autonomous cars. Now, we know they're gonna be on the street, but they will not be tomorrow. I mean, we are talking about this for 15 years. The same with AI. There is a value there. There's gonna be AI everywhere, most likely, but not tomorrow. So why don't we focus on what we need most, like sovereignty and cloud and other topics, you know? And yeah, prioritize stuff.
Okay. So Vadim, how do you tackle that?
Well, that's I would disagree with this comparison with autonomous cars. 15 years ago, technology was not there, and I spent a couple of years in the industry and was a little bit disappointed, and still have some scars on my on my back from this experience. And that's why my eye sometimes, triggering. But I believe that the adoption curve is much faster with AI. I think what happened a couple of years ago, like 2021, if I'm not mistaken, that ChatGPT just simply became daily tool for everyone, from my mother up to my teenage son. Like, just becomes there. Like, none of them will adopt autonomous cars so fast. And the circles of adoptions getting faster and faster with every new technology, because somehow, like, thanks to OpenAI, they showed that it's actually not a niche technology, it's everyday technology. And we see it everywhere. But from a point of view of how to deal with compliance and maybe standardization, which is also usually part of compliance, we're doing these compliance things like ISO, PCI DSS, SOC 2, HIPAA, what is this German version? I forgot the name of it. Like, it's there, or C5, I think, right? It's there for years, and usually it was a transactional thing. What you do, every year you invite auditor, you put a pile of paper, or nowadays probably documents, to his table and say, hey, dear auditor, from your 1,700 questions that you asked, here's the answers. And then the poor guy literally reading there, making some notes and preparing you another 700 pages report and say, you need to change that and that. Oh, no, okay, you are compliant again, here's your sticker. Cool. That somehow works. There's a big business, compliance, audit, everybody involved, somebody getting money, somebody spending money. Perfect. But now, the world changing so fast and regulation changing so fast, and it's not small changes like, I don't know, some healthcare insurance tax just improved a little bit, where thousands of companies now to adjust it, right, in their pay slip, for example. No. It's a big thing happening, like European AI Act or similar regulations. And now somehow you need to be compliant with multiple regulations, and then it takes half a year to be compliant with that, and during this half a year another regulation coming. And what we see from our customers, they just say, hey, enough, we cannot do that. Especially when I'm talking about digital customers, like very digital native customers. So like, what can we do just not to have this, this is some kind of, the race, we're always lost, we're always behind. What they do, they automate. They automate or turn this process from transactional audits every year, every 2 years, every 3 years, to a continuous pre-audit, maybe not legally correct, but at least they put all of their data, all their knowledge, usually some kind of set of standard operational procedures, some kind of internal documentation, and majority of companies have a lot of it. They just put it into big AI model and say, hey, read it, and tell me if there are any risks for any particular compliance in the context of, let's say, ISO. To some degree it works, to some companies it doesn't work from my experience, like it just simply don't have enough documentation, but they turn in this transactional compliance process into continuous process. And these companies will be ready for next, trade war or next European Union Act. They will be much more ready than traditional companies that just waiting for some big bank consultants who are coming to them every 3 years. It's still a little bit new. It's still a little bit not a trend, but I see it mainly with customers who are born digitally, who are digital companies, who don't have operational presence, who are not really like, if we are talking about insurance industries, they're not like companies with hundreds of years of experience. They're a little bit more innovative, and they're just solving their immediate pain. And somehow it works for them. For big companies, it will come, I believe, but the future will show.
Okay. Thank you. That's definitely interesting perspective, but I think you also highlighted one of the pitfalls that will be generating proofs for compliance sake and then verifying them through AI as well. So AI will check AI and what's the thing with that. And I think we also focus a lot on the layer of documentation and providing proof that a policy is placed, but we are technical people and we know there needs to be an audit trail, there needs to be a lot of things shown from a different perspective. So there is cost optimization or simplification to be done, and most possibly via AI as well, that could gather all the metrics and just generate the output. That would be way easier than having an administrator or someone diving deep into observability. So let's say we have this AI that does that. There are pitfalls in that. So what's your take on this then?
It will come. It will come, we want it or not. Maybe it will not cover 90% of potential market. Still, there are some industries, even within some particular industries, sorry for mentioning it again, it's insurance. Like some areas within insurance is so complicated. Like, I don't know, planes insurance is like mind-blowing, right? Underwriting of all this Boeing 747 contracts is like months and thousands of hours of people. This probably will not be solved, but I would expect like 70% or maybe 80% will be somehow solved, half automated, half rely on the people. But the big change here is not only technology, that it's not like technology will come and replace auditor. No. It will change, it will do continuous process with a very short feedback loop. Yeah. Like whatever you're doing on a daily basis, imagine I'm an engineer, I'm like sometimes building something, changing something, and then AI detects this change and coming back to me tomorrow with email and say, hey, are you sure this thing supposed to be like that? Because if you're not encrypting this data, if you're not doing it like that, if you're not doing it like that, it's potentially could violate your company certification on, I don't know, ISO. Mm-hmm. And then means that like, oh, sorry, let me roll it back, let me think about it. At least it creates awareness and it creates some kind of constant watchdog and not the person who is coming and saying, damn, you're changing it now and the whole company and operations stop. Because if you're losing compliance, that's it. Like, just amazing example from Amazon. I had a colleague who was overnight just disconnected from all Amazon services. And he was like, oh, am I fired? But that's not the way how we usually do it, right? Usually at least you got some letter, sure? Especially in Germany, right? Like, it's like, what happening? So through his manager, he's calling to operational guys and said, oh, by the way, we just realized that this person had, what is this kind of criminal record check when he came to the company. This criminal record check was like 2 days late, then it should be like at least 30 days fresh. And his criminal record check was 32 days or 33 days old. And 2 years after, they realized it. The guy went through several positions and they just simply stopped everything and said like, yeah, but come on, like 2 years passed, like what's happening? They're like, no, if we are not doing it, if we are not blocking him, if we still allow him access, we are losing our certification, which means that we, Amazon, hyperscaler, compromising trust of our customers. And it's not acceptable. It took the guy 1 week to go to South Africa, where he's originally from, to get a new criminal record, came back, and until he brought it back in a physical form sent by Deutsche Post, he was not able to work at all. And that's big bank which is distracting the business. If that will be detected on the third day of after his start, it will be way easier, way cheaper. And no dozen of customers will wait for this guy actually and say, what the heck, are you fired or what, right? Like, and this kind of continuous improvement need to be there. The compliance must be a way of doing things, not a particular artifact, which usually we call audit report.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was anti-example of what code reduction is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but Lars, what's your perspective, like being very pragmatic on this topic?
Yeah, I think it's boiling down to digitalization, right? So if you need something to feed the AI with. Right, so if a criminal record checks, it's a nice thing. I just had a similar thing on my own in my SOC audit. We're also asking, okay, are your criminal records checked? And say, yes. Okay, how can you prove it? Okay, talking to the HR and say, okay, there are criminal record checks when someone is hired. What do you do with it? And then one of the colleagues says, we're checking it, but okay, do you sort on the system? I said, no. Okay, that's a problem for the SOC 2 auditor, right? And ultimately, I found out, yes, they do it, but it's like there's an Excel list and someone checks it manually, that one is scanned and is then put to the file of the employee and there you can find it. So I say, okay, then I can prove it to the auditor, here are your 3 examples and yes, we have checked it. But how do I feed it to an AI? So therefore, of course, if I have a system, the system is integrated, I can access all the data and I can feed the AI, then I can generate the evidences on continuous basis. Yeah, but then you again, as you mentioned, right, if you're a very digital company, most probably everything is digitalized anyhow. You're using new systems. You started 5-10 years ago on Greenfield. Then this might be relatively easy, yeah, and obvious. But of course, if you're like G&D, 172 years old company, then some processes are maybe not 170 years old, but maybe 20 or so. And then it's big. And then again, cost value, right? So how much effort and value is it? I would say digitalize the process, make it all accessible, makes most probably sense anyhow. And yes, and if I have it, then I can also apply AI. But yeah, it's a bit about digitalization in first place, because if I have nothing to feed the AI, it can't help me.
Well, it's a chicken and egg problem, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But you have trailblazers. You have these new digital companies or even sometimes startups which actually show you the way. And if you're a traditional business, you earlier or later need to look into it. Like I think the time where we're a traditional business, we're here for 100 years, you are kids, it's gone. Like we see how small startups disrupting traditional businesses.
But that's the point, right? But you have 100 and 1,000 of processes in a company, and the question is, where do I start? Which are my most valuable processes to be digitalized? Yeah. And maybe this criminal record check, to be able to put it automatically in a SOC audit, it's not the case which is driving the digitalization AI journey. So maybe there are better cases. So therefore, you somehow has to start. And yes, of course, we are also digitalizing a lot. But the question is which process first and what way to invest and so on and so forth.
So that's a very analytical approach where it's the best outcome for the organization.
It's always, right? It's a business, right? You have to drive your business case and priorities.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see, Sergio, you are willing to go on this one.
I'm trying to hold myself. I'm going to be the provocative guy in the room.
Let it rip.
No, well, it's like, when we're talking about this kind of use case, I mean, it's very nice to imagine the future. But for me, science fiction, honestly. Don't take it personally. But it's like we are imagining and planning how to live on Mars. No? But we are living here on Earth, and we still have the global climate, no problem. The same, we still have the cloudification, we still have the data problem. We don't access the data, we don't structure the data. We are lacking a data platform. There's no way you can get to that level of accuracy in the first place to have an AI capable of dealing with that level of data. That's the first problem. The second, you have to talk to Buffin in the first place. You have to know the Buffin person. I hope no one is from Buffin here because I'm screwed. But they will not talk to an AI. They want to have screenshots. Not made by AI, by human, because the human has to be has a picture of a human next to a screenshot of a system, right? So there are so many pieces which are still on Earth that we cannot imagine building anything on Mars yet. So I would like to decouple the conversation. AI, it's nice, hopefully it's going to happen. But in the reality we are acting today, it's a completely different reality. We still are lacking data, lacking documents, and you don't have one single audit. You have if you know Buffin is going to knock on your door, or is going to do. There is a slight chance, like under 5%, that Buffin is going to knock at your door. You're going to have 5 different internal audits, and then you're going to have someone, maybe 2 or 3 external audits evaluating your internal audits. And then, if Buffin doesn't come, you're still happy that you spend millions on that because you knew that you have to do it. No? And almost every single time, more than 60% of the work, it's manual. And it's intense. I agree with you. It has to be, especially when you're in cloud and you have a cloud-native footprint, you can starting automating stuff. And then you can generate screenshots automatically. You have some very nice, and I hope AWS is double investing on that, You have AWS backup, you have customer key management. So you have a lot of systems that the industry can use already through automation to have all the proof for buffing. And those systems have to be accepted by the regulator in the first place. So probably you need to start educating the regulator first, see what are the digital limits of the regulator, and they are like low right now, and then try to make the best with those limits. And hopefully in time this is going to grow, but in time it means years, not days, right? So that's the reality we are currently facing on it. Huh?
I also think that the potential penalties and what we face in case we are not compliant, sometimes they are way more costly than the initial gain that we would get from AI as well.
You take no risk. So it's like you lose your license. That cannot happen to an insurer like Allianz.
Exactly.
That's unacceptable. That's no game. Yeah.
And I think that's a solid statement for us to move forward then. So you probably heard this sentence at least once, that people split in two, those who do backups and those who will do backups. That's true, but there is also another story you might remember from last year, July 2024. So there was a single faulty software update from CrowdStrike that led to one of the most significant outages in our known history of IT, crashing approximately 8.5 million stations. And prime example would be Delta Airlines, which had to cancel 7,000 flights and incurred a loss over 500 million USD. So I think there's a lesson, critical lesson for all of us, and that's how we enter the topic of building cost-effective digital resilience. So, Vadim, what strategies would best ensure the digital resilience against all the cyber attacks, disaster, human error, including? What's your thoughts on that?
If you'll ask this question like 5 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, the answer will be there's do backups frequently and that's it, right? Like everybody doing it like for the last 30, 50 years of digitalization of this world. Nowadays, reality is a little bit different. I'm working a lot with Ukrainian companies, and sometimes these companies are system-relevant companies, banks. Like, for example, literally my parents getting salary through these banks. Like they pay for their groceries through these banks. And the problem here is not hackers. The problem here is rockets, which land on top of data centers. And of course, moving everything out from Ukraine, adjusting some kind of regulation which supports that is somehow like works. But reality shows nowadays that it's not only about backups anymore. Now, of course, when we're talking about digital resiliency, of course, it's a little bit of this topic that we already touched. It's independency from some kind of crazy guys in states who make some laws. Another thing, let's call it transactional actions. Another thing, of course, it's a human mistake. Hackers, attacks, they get so sophisticated nowadays. And the classical way of saying, hey, just do backups, it doesn't work anymore. Like, yes, we got a bank, biggest in Ukraine, actually, one of the biggest, who said like, hey guys, we lost our primary database, like, or copy of it at least. It's like, so we switched to backup, but now we need to secondary, but now we need to somehow like keep up because we cannot run on secondary forever, right? Customers will be underserved. It's like, and what about backups? He said like, oh, we had it, but we never tested it. It's like, oh. So apparently they were not able to recover their primary backup. Luckily they had two running systems in parallel, so clones of that's totally fine. But otherwise we're talking about like 20 millions of customers who are done. Same happening with telecom operators, like do some hack, mainly actually according to investigation, it was a human compromised mistake, but somebody literally shut down mobile operator with 21 million of active mobile subscribers. It's like size of Vodafone or a little bit smaller than Telecom in Germany. Like it's a huge, right? And you overnight just shut it down and it took them 1 week to recover everything. And reality now, it's cyber war. So you don't need to prepare for disaster. It's not disaster in terms of somebody who got a little bit too much rights or some hackers who broke in. No. Now you have state-owned attackers, especially talking about North Korea. Probably a lot of people heard about this Lazarus group, which actually sponsored by, and they earn money for North Korean government, just literally by stealing money from banks, ransomware, stealing bitcoins, and so on and so on. There is also political influence here, like when I don't know what's happening right now, but over the last couple of years, there was like a lot of attacks was over Bundestag, right? Why? Who the hell need to attack the website of Bundestag? Who cares, right? You cannot get any money, but it's a part of political influence. It's part of creating fear and social tension around it. And that's where your business needs to be ready again. How to do it? You need to think about the strategy, not only about what will happen if we accidentally shut down our database or whatever, our transaction list, but you need to look into bigger scope. And sometimes you are getting attacked by some actors, which somehow I did nothing to them. Why is they attacking me, right? Yeah, but it's just a question of social influence, especially if you're a big company, especially if you're a system relevant company, especially if you're a government affiliated company. And that's what's happening nowadays. What to do about it? You need to rethink your whole backup, resiliency, cybersecurity strategy, and so on. And unfortunately, what I see with a lot of companies, especially if we are talking about, again, traditional companies, we get used to it, they simply don't have enough talent who are willing to dive deep into the topic. The topic, to be honest, is very boring, right? Being cybersecurity expert is probably the boring job from my point of view, but you need to invest into it. And the problem here, again, if you're talking to a big company and said, oh, we need to invest into cybersecurity, for them it's a cost center. It's not something that brings a value, right? It's not like, oh, we invest in cybersecurity and we will grow our revenue 5% per year. No. We'll grow our cost center 30% per year. And of course, it's very bad pitch if you need to go to CFO and try to say it. It's of course, he'll say, what is the risk that somebody will attack us? I don't know, because the world is changing so fast. 30 years ago, the risk will be zero. Now the risk is non-zero. Is it 5% or 75%? We have no clue, because the world is moving, and that's a big problem that companies simply don't take it seriously.
Okay. So I think you named even more risks that we should guard against and some strategies, but all those layers of defense, they are very costly. So
absolutely,
how do we tackle the cost and still have that digital resilience? Lars, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's all about risk reduction, right? So and the risk increased just a lot today, and there again you have the question, how much is it worth, and what solutions can I take? And from my perspective, it's of course about business continuity planning, about the security management. It's not only about losing the data and getting it back or learning in parallel. So I would say for that stack, we have the regular IT solutions like replication, backups, and so on and so forth, right? You do it a hyperscaler, do it on your own, doesn't matter. But if you have a critical digital business or digital solutions, you're just setting up this, I would say, since 10, 20 years well-known solutions. But also from hackers, you have the thing that they are stealing your data, they are blackmailing you that they will publish it. Then you can have a backup, but what does it help you if they publish your company data or personal data? So that's more the things about security we have to think about. And of course, you have to think it today end to end. And yes, it is costly. And I would say there's no way around that. So again, you can, of course, try to outsource it as much as possible to hyperscalers. Again, they are offering solutions, partially at least for that one, to make it easier for you, that you don't have to do all on your own. Again, then you're in the sovereignty topic, right? So there you have the dependency. And then again, if you want to do it all on your own, make it fully sovereign, fully independent, fully secure, well, yes, that is expensive. And then you're in a business case and you have to think, okay, what is my risk if this happens, and what I'm willing to invest to reduce this risk as much as possible, because you can never fully avoid it anyhow. But it's really business decision depending on your business, on your topic, on your budget, on your risk appetite maybe also. But there's no black and white. But you have to do something. I would say that's the key takeaway for me. it's not possible to say, let it run and it will not happen to me. So that's for sure.
Should be
Not-
conscious decision. I
Not
think.
so clever, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
You used this phrase before, and I think it should be conscious written decision as part of strategy.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it's also related to maturity and understanding how things actually work, what are the risks, because every company that have physical bidding, they have cameras, they have security guards, they have books, entry books, a lot of things, and they just seems to pass over it, the cost associated to that, because it's obvious, but this digital resilience is still a seed. It's not really taken place, so for a lot of people, it's a problem of understanding the risks as well.
But I think that's meanwhile it's really changing. So I would say 5 years ago, I would agree that many companies don't see the cyber risk so much. I think because it's in the media and a lot of people, also we here, are talking about it. I think the awareness for risk and cybersecurity and what can happen is really raising, and also you can see, of course, that a lot is invested in this business.
Definitely. Okay. So, Sergio, what would be your recommendation for the strategy?
I'm going to be positive on this one. I really like your
Oh.
answer.
Now it's your turn.
No, it's my turn. No, I'm going to try to be positive, I promise. So I really like your views and perspective on this one. So cybersecurity, it's much more than just backup, definitely. Working backups, even that. I also go back to your point, which is mostly it's defensive. And it has to be, to a certain point. You need to make sure that now the whole industry is digital enough. And then the cloud maturity, the innovation maturity, we go back to innovation sovereignty, allows you to be safer or not. No? And a lot of cybersecurity, it's about response, it's about mitigation, it's about education, because the weakest link in the whole digital footprint is going to be the entry point for different stakeholders. And you have more and more capabilities than ever before. AI is going to play a huge role in how you do that. Quantum computing, again, is going to be huge. But what I would like to see again in Europe, and I'm trying to be positive, it's more like Israel is doing. If you go in KubeCon, which is the biggest event in cloud native, you're going to see that all the startups selling cybersecurity solutions are from Israel. And they are leading the space. If you read news like you have a cybersecurity company that is now capable of listening to your cooler and understand what you're typing, that's a company from Israel. If you hear the news saying that now the Wi-Fi, you can use Wi-Fi to actually see in a room, it's an Israel company. So they're leading the conversation while also monetize the whole conversation, because they make money while they also are jumping and leading the whole cybersecurity space. So why doesn't Europe try to play also offensive a little bit? That would be nice to see more of Europe.
Okay, so switching the strategies to be more offensive. And if you would have to name 3 practices, approaches, or solutions that come to your mind that would improve cost effectively and resilience, what would it be?
Something that Dora is bringing, it's making a general problem. And this is something I like a lot. For the first time, business persons have to be in an incident room. Incidents were, and when I say incident, it's more than just the incident itself. It's the post-mortem, the learning, the action afterwards, the realization that mistakes are made, and you also need to understand the whole context, that you're a digital player. We have a lot of digital business people that were never digital, and now, because of Dora, they are owning the incident rooms, now when you have to report to Dora. So that's something I like a lot, because you basically make it a general problem in the whole company, and education follows. This is, I would just name one, and this is something I see it very positively.
So you invest in education of people?
That's happening. So you make it more person accountable for that capability. And education follows.
So I think not education is the right word, but actually what you said, accountable.
Accountability.
It's like it's a skin in the game. So
Yeah.
this problem of executive, it's a problem of his job security, not some IT guy from data center who will be fired, so what? He will find another job tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So it's skin in the game topic. It's amazing.
Okay. And a recommendation from you then, Vanden?
I would just repeat what Lars said, like make conscious assessment, what is important, what is not important. Of course, you cannot be white or black year. It's always some kind of this subsystems are important, these subsystems are less important, and put a number on it. Like typical, every time I see the stories that our business side of our business don't buy our IT initiatives because we want to be resilient, secure, whatever, performant, and so on, because you cannot put a number of it. A number is either loss or potential gain. If we are talking about cybersecurity, resiliency, autonomy even, like it's all about loss, right? So you just put some probabilities, multiply by revenue and say, hey, if we are down, we are losing $120,000 per minute. And just go to your CFO. He will be your best friend and say, no, we cannot afford that. So it's like, now we're talking. Now I'm not just an IT guy. Like, now we're talking, right? Like, of course, there's a room for speculation. Of course, there's a room for internal politics. But without numbers, business don't make any decisions. So put everything into numbers. At least 80% correct, like numbers.
Well, then I will leverage AI to do it. I'm just joking.
I'm actually doing it. I'm helping customers to put things in a number because they say, hey, our business cannot give us a budget for that. It's like, okay, what is the cost of your shutting down your business for 1 hour? It's like, we don't know. Okay, how much you earn for 1 hour? 50,000. Okay, how about we'll say 75,000, but why 75? Because once you're down for 1 hour, you lost 50,000, but then you also stopped whatever you're doing. You have got another 25,000 of opportunity cost. Let's put it into Excel cells or Excel lines, and that works.
Yeah, but I had an interesting discussion on that in one of the last conferences, was to say, okay, if it was with automobile business, and they say we have to go to 2 hyperscalers in parallel because one is not available, we have the second one, and we have to be 99.9999%, and so. And I say, yeah, for what? And yeah, for all of our automobile sales vendors and so on. So, yeah, okay, but if you don't, yeah, but because we are selling X automobiles per hour, I say, yeah, okay, but really, if the system is down for 1 hour, and in this hour you cannot sell the cars, don't you believe the customers are coming back 1 hour later and will still buy it? So it means in that case, most probably will do the revenue an hour later. So therefore, it depends heavily on your business, right? So
Absolutely.
if it's not there for an hour, is the customer really jumping away, not coming back again, or do we have some penalties to pay? So there are a lot of reasons to do this, but it's maybe also, if you're doing this risk assessment, which you should really do for business continuity planning, really think realistically about it. What really happens if the system is for 1 hour not there? It's maybe also different. 1 hour, okay, it's something different than 1 week, right? So, and maybe if you're in production and I cannot produce it for 1 hour and I'm fully booked 100% for the next 3 months, my problems may be bigger than if I'm only booked for 50%. So it depends on the situation. Yeah.
So that's the weight of it, I would say, but I agree with all what you guys said so far. But risk assessment is very typically a one-time engagement of skin in the game where people have to think. And that's why I think Sergio's approach to have people in the room be accountable and part of incidents, it's way more important. It's a continuous thing. But as the world is speeding up and we have new threats and the weight of the risk is also changing, that is something that we can definitely go deeper into. So moving on, as we touched on the topic of AI, we touched digital sovereignty, we touched about also digital resiliency. There is associated cost to all of it. So be it on-prem, hybrid, private cloud, sovereign cloud, public cloud, there's always money included in all of this. And we can see it with our customers that there are a lot of decisions, shortcuts being taken when we move into the cloud or being invested in that area. Also lack of experience and knowledge, which is in the long term costing a lot of money. Money that if you were in on-premise world, you just simply did not see. So that is also an attitude issue. And our typical gain from FinOps engagement with our customers is between 20 to 30% on a scalable year. That's how much you can save. So moving on, as it's a very important topic of saving, whatever type of environment you have, is how businesses can optimize the spend without sacrificing the performance scalability, and if there are metrics that we should follow at the beginning to serve as the North Star, the compass for the organization. Sergio.
First thing you have to do is, again, make it a cultural change. So everyone in the company has to be accountable and responsible for that. And next, of course, you need to have the right systems and data in order to map resources to a team and to a person. And then once you do that, so you change the culture, and then you get the data and the systems to map this governance model of resources, then you can start changing the way you design systems in the first place. Because I believe the biggest FinOps approach you can have, it's the architecture of your systems. So if you have a poor design system, it's going to be extremely polluted with a lot of things, and the waste is going to be high. So working at the design level is the most important. When you design a system, you have to design the operational concerns, and part of that is also the FinOps concerns, right? So that's extremely important. And also have the capacity to redesign. So it's not just the first design, but also the, let's say, the composability of your design has to be able to take some components out, add some new ones. So the whole system has to evolve continuously. So that would be the design. That would be, again, next one is the education of people. Once you have the accountability and you give them the tool, they have to be educated in order to be able to identify waste. The problem here is that the whole conversation of FinOps happens more or less on cloud. You say cloud, it's where you have to squeeze the numbers, right? But then AI comes, and suddenly you spend on AI much more than you were spending on the whole cloud, and that's no problem. Right? Because it's strategic. It's an existential problem. You just frame it differently. And it's an existential crisis, and you can spend millions on that, but you have to squeeze a few $100 on the cloud system. So that's a little bit strange. And then if you need AI and you need to tap into the value of AI, you need a data platform. So again, data platform becomes an existential crisis, and you're going to spend other few millions without too much focus on FinOps, because it's something you just need to make it happen. So it's an unfair situation. I'm, again, opinionated because I'm responsible for cloud, not that much for the data platform. I used to be an AI I was leading the AI department, but now I became a skeptical, as you can see, on AI. Maybe because of that, I don't know. So this would be the main, let's say, dimension that you have to look at. Right? Okay. And then maybe I can add more the compliance aspect, because it's important. Because you have tremendous pressure on saving mainly, and FinOps is mainly saving on waste, not saving on anything else, so you keep the performance. But then compliance comes and it asks you to do a backup strategy, and the backup strategy, the way you implement the backup strategy, if you don't have the right tooling, the right expertise and knowledge and partners, and you're not in the cloud, but you're in, I don't know, multi-region cloud or even multi-hyperscaler strategy, then suddenly one requirement that it's misinterpreted by the CEO or COO might generate you, I don't know, double the cost that you had last year just because of one single flag that you have to activate. So compliance itself has to be treated, once you have the culture and the tools, compliance itself has to be also treated with the FinOps mindset. And then when you have a backup, you should not have a retention period of, I don't know, 365 days. Maybe you go for 1 day. But you have to become aware of the consequences of that. And the decision has to be made through education by someone that needs to understand the technicalities behind it. So,
I very much enjoyed your sentence when it comes to bad design. So we have a board in a room of our FinOps people, and the highest record is 72% cost reduction, and that just simply showcases how badly it was done. And that's it, right? Vadim, it's not in the interest of AWS to save us money, but I'm very curious about your perspective.
That's not true, to be honest. AWS actually playing in a very, very long run here. I'm solution architect. I'm not getting any financial incentives as part of my job. And part of my KPI is to optimize customer. Like literally, I'm working with customer to save their money. Of course, somebody on sales side say, hey, don't optimize them too much. I said, like, I don't care. We're a customer-obsessed company. So it's a little bit of, people don't believe me when I'm saying it, but I'm spending 30% of my work optimizing customer spend. And I feel good about it, to be honest. But I was really laughing from this phrase from Sergey, that if the cost reduction come in, first thing we cut, it's a cloud, right? And why it's like that? Because cloud is a dynamic spend. And how it's different from traditional IT infrastructure, because traditional IT infrastructure, you have 3-5 years, commitment times, purchased, amortized across multiple years, whatever. I'm not too good in these financial terms, but that's it. You did it once, and for 3 years, your financial department okay, we're not touching this thing. Maybe some kind of maintenance, whatever fee, which is also usually pre-agreed or whatever. But cloud is dynamic spend, and of course they said, okay, if it's dynamic, let's just squeeze it, because we cannot cancel this 3-year contract with our data center provider anymore, but we can actually reduce our consumption. And that, of course, kicks us a lot, because pretty often customers doing decisions about their optimization not based on reasoning, which is driven by business needs, but rather of their hands are tied. They don't have any other place to optimize, because there is long-term contract. So they just say, okay, whatever, let's optimize whatever is dynamic. Okay, cloud is dynamic. That's it. But talking about FinOps again, it's a little bit social construct. It's what was already mentioned. It requires a little bit of mind change. And what I'm probably repeating third time already today, it's a change from these transactional things like 3-year data center support contract or data center leasing contract, 3-year of or one-time transactional for a couple of millions to acquire hardware, which will be amortized across the next 3-4 years. It's shift towards this fluent, continuous understanding where's your costs. And based on that, I actually realized that FinOps is usually, it's a good indicator of financial agility of your company. With the customers who has a good finance practices in place, I see that these guys, they understand their money flow everywhere, and they're actually very adaptable. And again, talking about adaptivity in the modern world is very important. While if FinOps practices are very constrained and usually, let's say, put into bucket, okay, FinOps is only for the cloud, that's where is the moment you realize, okay, this company is financially not agile enough and not flexible in terms of reallocating their priorities, reallocating of their spend. And again, typical contract for any kind of IT infrastructure is 3 years, right? How can you plan now for 3 years in advance? Of course you plan with that big margin, right? Which means that you're overpaying from day one. And that's also something that a lot of companies don't understand. And once you are trying to speak to people who from finance departments, they look on you like you are speaking this imaginary language from Harry Potter, or not from Harry Potter, from Tolkien's, right? Lord of the Rings. So it's like, yeah, that's a nice story, but it's from Mars or from Tolkien.
Thank you, Vadim. So I look from the perspective that I know I was joking that it's not in the interest of AWS. It is in the interest of AWS. It's always the question, do you feel you are squeezing the worth of what you pay from the cloud? So do you see the value from the spend that you do? And this leads also to perspective, are we there? And it's, of course, it's different for organizations that are truly digital and their income is digitally based, and it's different for classical, let's say, type of business. Lars, I know you are a FinOps champion within G+D, so I'd like to hear your thoughts.
I don't know if I'm the champion there, but of course with cloud and strong cloud focus, I can fully agree to everything said, right? So it's mainly a cultural thing that you bring financial awareness on both levels. So on the one hand side, to the accountability to the management levels, which is also, as you mentioned, compliance and the new regulations is really helping for it. I like it that you can raise the awareness and make people accountable, which did not want it beforehand. But also on the other hand side, to bring it down to the teams. Right. So today we have every 2 weeks also then sessions with our developers thinking about FinOps or with the DevOps or the InfraOps colleagues and say, okay, does this machine really have to run 24/7, yes or no, right? So really this nitty-gritty discussions. And the thing is, there was a cultural thing. You just have to establish it and going down. Let's say it's a bit like a tree, right? To all the parts of the company, really down to ultimately to the developer and whoever's working with it, or even to the user, to think about it and make it awareness and regularly look on it and have a tooling and reporting and then bring it back up. So that's, and if everybody is looking onto it, then you can really achieve a lot of savings, I would say, yes. And the funny thing, of course, then also with long-term contracts is a bit contradicting to that. If I want to have a volume discount from AWS or from Amazon, I have to do at least a 3 years commitment and a quite high one. Right, so and therefore, on the one hand side, I'm committing to a very high volume. On the other hand side, I try to reduce my volume as much as I can. And then I say, okay, if I'm very successful with my FinOps practices, I might never reach it. So and that's a bit really, in fact, it's in practice in the moment our issue that we said, okay, we could do now a commitment, in our case with Microsoft, or with everybody else, we're also talking, and we say, in fact, we cannot do the commitment because we are trying to save the money, to improve the FinOps. For example, we're also juggling with the hyperscalers, right? To say, okay, what do we really want on Azure? What do we really want on AWS? We don't know yet. Maybe we also change it in the next 3 years, or we take that one which is the most cheapest one. So in the moment, I say it's really tricky to make a commitment because we are trying to get everything more dynamic, more down, more flexible, more resilient, and therefore, especially this type of contract is hard to make. So it's a bit, therefore, it's a bit paradox.
Maybe we're said in here that, not related to commitments, but FinOps is not only about transparency of the cost. Of course, transparency of the cost and attribution of the cost and responsibility or accountability for the cost, it's a first thing. But FinOps, it's not only tech cost. It's not like splitting your tech cost center into some sub-cost centers, right? And not your way of asking like, who the hell spends this $15,000 over a weekend for some big AI model, right? No. FinOps is a tool, which is a new tool a little bit, not well adapted by financial people, by your CFO, by your accounting team, procurement team, because what they can do, they actually can understand your unit economy and understand, for example, I don't know, if you're a taxi company like MyTaxi or whatever it's called, FreeNow nowadays, and you know that you earn like $5 per trip, and from this $5 per trip, you pay $1 for your IT infrastructure, that's definitely help to you to understand where the money is going to. Just to give you an example, I have a customer who spent like 2-digit million per year with AWS, big company, global, like in all continents. And they always complain, it's like, oh, it's so expensive. We're constantly working with them, like with constantly optimizing, looking, literally saving some pennies there, but on this scale, like leverage is quite big, like saving 2 pennies here is like becoming like 20,000 per month, like easily like that. But then I realized one thing. They spent double of these 2-digit numbers that they spent for AWS only for SMS. It's like, wait a second, guys, that's a little bit like, why you're not optimizing there? AWS is a commodity, it's cheap. It's like, we never thought about it, we never had a visibility on it. But now our CFO has visibility on cloud, and he actually questioning us. He says that from like, let's say, one hypothetical MyTaxi trip, I'm not talking about MyTaxi, but similar company.
Sorry, Vadim, but we are rushing now
to
the time. So I would say it's a matter of perspective, it's a matter of education, it's a matter of practice and empowering people to think through their practices as well. And I'm not sure about you, but my back is getting stiff a little bit, so we are entering the grand final now. And I would like to invite our panelists here to share 1-2 sentences for closing about emerging trends and key insights for business strategy. And I read an article in Financial Times that AI solved 4% of coding issues in an industry test conducted in 2023. Last year, it soared up to 69%. That's a provoking thought. And I also read somewhere that Sam Altman, so OpenAI CEO, told that the cost of AI will drop 10 times every year. And on the other side, I read that Andy Jassy, so AWS CEO, told that reducing the cost of AI per unit will truly unleash AI in our everyday lives. So emerging trends and key insights, stage is set for you to share those sentences for the audience. Lars.
Well, you already said it. So I really, for us, I really see AI, so not AI in general, but speaking of Gen AI and LLM models as game changer. That's clear. It's fastly improving. If nowadays, for example, you're not only let's say GitHub Copilot, most or many developers are using, it's making that like typing faster. But if you use full models like Claude AI to develop software, which is also working already nowadays, and from personal experience I can say surprisingly well, then it's clear that for example, the job of development and developers will change in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it takes. That they are not coding anymore, but more telling the AI what to do. I'm 100% convinced this will happen, but what's the impact? Ultimately, they will have more output. Of course, I need still a developer, someone has to think through it, how it's developed, but it's more like the same, the past have been developing machine code or C code or then C#, and all, right, so now in future they're using AI to develop C# code. The game is changing, but overall, yes, AI is the game changer, as you mentioned. The cheaper it gets, the more it gets into all of our lives, the more it gets also into the devices, and the more it can be used, and the more it will be used, and the more use cases you will find.
Okay. Thank you, that's very useful. Vadim, a few sentences for me.
Maybe 3 points, which I believe will happen in next 3-5 years. The first one is, of course, AI is there, like we cannot roll it back. But what it will change how organizations operate. It's not about like coders, developers, and so on. It will make organizations more granular and each team in an organization more self-containing. Why? Because AI allows them not to have too many dependencies. And organizations, especially biggest, if we are talking about like 1,000+ people, need to think how their teams, which get used to work in particular way, will get their autonomy and how they will work without delays at the end, which also means faster business operation, supposedly more successful business, or faster way to shut down the business, of course, depending on which spiral you're in. Second thing is regulations. Everybody loves this amazing cookies banners on the website, right? That will be cookies or peanuts comparing to what will come. I think the whole regulations in European Union will be tougher, and maybe not only in European Union, but in a global way. It will be new reality of that, and it will emerge within like next 3-5 years for sure. Like we need to be ready for that. And unfortunately, majority of end users will not like it. Nobody likes these cookie banners, like, right, as well. Like or GDPR. Nobody loves GDPR except of people who are actually into a topic and understand why it exists, right? So there's a good reasons why it exists. And the third thing is quantum computing actually becoming adoptable. Even yesterday I read about some device which doing positioning, like GPS positioning without GPS, purely on quantum. And the reason why quantum is so connected, or how it matches to the current evolution, it's like AI was 5 years ago. Quantum depends on a cloud, on a huge compute, pre-compute, all error correction and so on. Technology is very compute intensive to develop quantum technology, but once it's developed, of course, it's easily scalable. And that's something that we will see in the next couple of years on a not daily basis, but it will not be something like autonomous car. Like no, it will not be so unique anymore. Like we see autonomous cars in Hamburg like every day, right? So in Berlin even. Like so it will be there in 5 years.
Thank you. So lastly, Sergio, hopefully something positive.
I'm going to try to be funny, actually. So I'm skeptical, right? So I do believe the next job is going to be, we have now porting to cloud from legacy. So the next job is going to be porting from AI system to human written system. Because I'm seeing it from operation, right? I have this human in, human out, and you're gonna coding. It's about decision making. So you reflect your decisions by writing code, and now by using and externalizing that, we are also seeing that to an AI based on our desire. We allow an AI to basically, invent code that we never analyze, and for sure we will have no operation qualities inside that code, and maybe we can't even read that code, especially when it's going to be mass adopted. So you're going to end up with some systems that will have to be rewritten by humans probably to really be sustainable and resilient in the future. So it's not so funny at the end, it was a little bit sad, but I believe that's going to be the future job. And maybe another one, but a little bit unrelated with our job, I believe virtual reality or augmented reality it's already here. I mean, if you go on a tram, you see everyone watching the screens and connected to anyone else but the reality around them. So I don't like Meta, I don't like Zuckerberg, no, they are evil, but I believe they are on something great because it seems everybody's already living in that reality, in the virtual reality. So that's here, it just need probably different devices to take even more of our attention and our life.
Okay. Thank you very much. Shortly from my side, I would put one sentence: invest in people. That would be my key point, because there is always the next big thing coming. We have seen that many times, and it's continue to be. People will be important factor, and it's always worthwhile to have people on board that know what they are doing. Big thanks to our crew here for organizing the event. I know that we promised Q&A, but let's just have it that off the panel discussion now. I would very much like to extend my thanks to Vadim, Sergio, Lars for sharing your insights. I hope it was very useful for you and provoked some thoughts. Big applause for our team.
IT Insights, talks on business and IT challenges with tech leaders. Visit us at itinsights.tech and dive into our podcasts, webinars, and events.